Hello, and welcome to Talk.Therapy.Heal, a dynamic and engaging show that endeavors to shatter the many stigmas surrounding mental health and therapy. Talk.Therapy.Heal is a collective of licensed counselors, therapists, and life coaches unique in areas of specialization, expertise, and experience. Through the art of curated, genuine, compassionate conversation, we get to the deep things. We are so excited you chose to begin your healing journey with us. Tune in to Talk Therapy Heal. Hello, and welcome to Talk Therapy Heal, where we dig into life's challenges and struggles, and we give you the mental health perspective. Join us for today's episode.
Hi, I'm Kenya.
Welcome back. I'm Rachel.
Hey, I'm Larissa.
Hey, I'm Nikki.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shan. Welcome to another amazing episode, as Larissa said. Now, we are bringing to the table, so remember our hashtag bring it to the table.
Mm-hmm.
We are bringing to the table some topics that many do not like to discuss, but coming from a mental health perspective, right? Like she said. So we have been in this healing series. If you missed any episode, you may want to go back and catch up.
Yeah.
So that way you can see where we are and don't feel kind of out of pocket. Our series is called Am I Healed? Am I Healed? Now, we are season 2, episode 7. And what we're going to be discussing tonight is don't cover the wound with contaminated material. I've been waiting on this one.
Man, I know. So we've already given a definition of what a wound is.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like we need a definition for what contaminated.
Just thinking that, or contamination.
Which I? Contaminate means
Okay.
it implies intrusion of or contact with dirts, foulness from an outside source. I like that word, intrusion. Intrusion or contact with dirt or foulness from an outside source. So it could be poisonous, tainted, polluted, defiled, or infectious. Oh, and we've been talking about infection.
Infections.
Oh, so yeah, put this together. Yes.
Oh.
So it's intrusion. So coming
Intrusion.
in without permission
Oh.
of dirt or foulness on your wound that's already healing. So when we talk about intrusion, I don't know if we want to pull that piece of it out. Would it be an intrusion? Because when you think about it, the person, we are the ones who've actually placing that material, that intrusive material on top, right? Do we want to say that it's, well, it is what it is.
To the wound, though.
But we're applying it to the wound. We are covering our wounds with contaminated material that can be poisonous, that can be infectious,
detrimental.
Yeah,
That's not allowing the healing to take place.
So what are some examples of contamination as it relates to mental health or to wounds as we're healing?
I think when we look at that piece, intrusion, when I think of intrusion, you're looking at someone that's not supposed to be there, but they're trying to force their way into that specific
Space.
area, into a space. And so if a person is dealing with some mental health issues, but they got somebody in their ear telling the girl, you don't need that, man, you don't need that. Why don't you just go to the barbershop? Why don't you talk to your pastor? Why don't you talk to this, that, and the other? That can be contamination because they're feeding that into you, knowing that you need some type of help, but they're preventing you from getting it.
So basically what I hear is this: an individual who desires for the infection to come out, you allow.
You will.
Because it's us. We as the individual allow the person to remain in our ear to tell us,
Absolutely.
you paying such and such dollars a week for therapy. I wouldn't do that if I was you. Girl, please you could watch this YouTube channel. You could watch this. I've been watching this listening to this podcast.
Or
follow. Oh yeah, or I follow this individual on TikTok, which is nothing wrong if you getting it. But when you're talking about, I think Larissa said in the last episode, thinking about greenish black infection.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the worst kind that can lead to sepsis. So I do agree, but we allow. It makes me think about I am fighting to get rid of the infection. I'm working together with my counselor, but I continue to go back to the very thing that I'm running from, like Kenya said in the last episode.
Yeah, that's basically what I believe it is. And when you're talking about covering a wound, you always cover a wound because you don't want to get dirt and things like that inside. Sometimes the wound has to be uncovered so it can get some air, it can breathe. And a lot of times that's where the contamination comes in at, because once you open up and you're letting all this other stuff come inside, that's contaminating you because it's going against what you're trying to get rid of in the first place.
So you telling me we need to have filters?
Yes.
Come on, filters.
That's true.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's filters. It's blocking out that stuff that we know we don't need. And I know this is going to be one of those topics that we really get deep into. But if you think about it, there's a lot of people that go to counseling on a regular basis. And then they'll leave the counseling office, like Shan was saying, and go sit down and talk to somebody that talks them out of everything that the counselor was just telling them about. And then they wonder why when they come back, nothing is changing in their lives because you just cross-contaminated everything.
Cross-contamination.
Yeah.
You know what that makes me think of? I'm sorry, y'all. I always got to apologize first. It made me think of back in the day when Bishop was ministering. We were stationed at Fort Campbell, and he was saying how people will bring their troubles to the altar. They will go down, they get prayed for and they will pick it right back up and take it right back out with them. This is what that makes me think about with the cross-contamination. Like, so then I think in that part, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, as the individual, do you really want to heal? Because when you come back from listening to this person who's now put all this stuff in your ear and you bring it back to the counselor, your therapist thinking, hey, we've been making progress. But you come back with all your toxic baggage, which makes it harder for the healing experience.
I would say yes, they do want to heal, but they don't have that self-regulation or the filters in place to recognize, oh, I'm being contaminated again, or they don't have the courage or the skill set or the skills, the awareness to know that I'm
not sticking with the tools.
Yes.
So that's
self-actualization.
Right. And I was thinking like, you don't identify those negative influences. You can't identify those negative influences. So people who bring you down, you can't recognize people who bring you down, things that stress you out or things that are hindering your healing. So because most people would say, we talked about this a little earlier, I guess, apply pressure, right, to that wound. But applying pressure, you have to know what you're applying the pressure with. Like, what are you using to apply that pressure? Because sometimes things that are being applied hinders.
Absolutely.
So what would it look like to apply pressure with something that would hinder the healing or cause that contamination?
Boundaries with the person or an environment, right?
Environment is good. That's good.
Yes.
Because think about this, right? Think about COVID. I'm having a whole dialogue up here. If you know there is airborne pathogens, you will not go outside without a mask on. So it's the same thing. If you know you're in the process of healing, you're going to take all the precautions you need to make sure that you don't get infected with these airborne pathogens. You're going to wear a mask. You're going to bring hand sanitizer. You're going to listen. You're going to strip off your clothes when you come back home. You're going to do all those things to make sure that it does not cross-contaminate back into your home.
So what I'm hearing too is making sure you have the proper covering.
Yes.
And so that can come in many different forms. But what came to my mind was having the proper covering from God, the word. And so to keep that material that you're covering a wound with or making sure that it's not contaminated is making sure that it's clean. It's making sure, because think about going back to your example of COVID, people were putting on masks that weren't clean. Think when they were in the hospital and in the hospital settings, whenever they changed or whenever they saw a new client or patient, they changed all their PPE, right? Their gear, like they didn't have the same thing. You couldn't go because cross
room to the next room,
they cross contamination. You have to make sure that what you're using or what you're covering with, you're covered with is clean, is pure. It promotes healing.
Right.
So I'm thinking like the word of God promotes healing. So covering with that helps the healing process. It doesn't hinder it. But we're talking about, okay, Nikki, get your mind back, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about things that are contaminated, things that would cause the person to not be able to properly heal.
Absolutely.
You know, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
So with the natural wound, we take the bandage, clean the wound. But if we put a clean bandage over the wound and we put it too tight, what does that look like in the therapy?
Cut off circulation.
Going too hard, too deep, too fast, pushing the person instead of going at a decent pace that they are ready to go towards.
For the person trying to get past the infectious part.
Yeah.
Because I just want to get it over with, like we mentioned before. But see, what I was going to say is, remember how we were saying that when we are in the beginning stage, maybe in the first session with a client, we're kind of telling them what they can expect. And remember we were saying, when you set boundaries, there are people who are not going to like it. They're going to be upset. This is that stage to me, where it's like, I still want to be close to my family. I still want to be close to my friends or whatever the case may be. And I want to set these boundaries, but this is where I find most people will somewhat teeter. Like, well, did you set your boundary? Well, Kenya, how did that go when you set your boundary with this person? Because I know with my clients, I start with, hey, who is an easier person that you can set boundary with? I don't send them for the hard. And so then they'll say, well, how did they go? Well, you know, so that reminds me, okay, so what did the person say? And then here come all the things. Why are you going to that person anyway? And all the excuses that this is the point where it could take a person backward instead of going forward.
Right.
So in setting those boundaries, what I'm hearing is like you have to know your limits. So understand what you're comfortable with and what you need to feel safe and respected in it. So if you say I need a boundary or I need to set a boundary, I have to understand what I'm really comfortable with doing in that moment, right? And who I'm comfortable with doing it with. So I can communicate clearly, like expressing my boundaries in a straightforward manner. But if I am unsure, I'm not comfortable, I'm going to struggle with setting those boundaries. And so I'm going to allow people to apply pressure or put things across my wounds that I don't like, that I don't agree with because I don't know my limits. So this kind of goes back to the beginning, like we said, accessing to even gain access, you kind of got to know who you are. You got to know who you are. If you do not know who you are in this process, it makes it very difficult for you to understand what you need.
Right.
And how to give it to yourself. So we're saying, don't cover your wound with contaminated material. But if you don't know who you are and what you need, you're going to cover it with anything.
You're covered with anything that makes you feel better about yourself or the situation that you're currently in. So if I decided that I was going out one night, going to the club, I mess around and get drunk. On my way back to catch a ride share, Uber or something like that, somebody crossed me across the head and they raped me. I've got an issue now. I started going to see a counselor. Well, how are you dealing with that? We're going through all of that. Cross-contamination is me going right back to that same club, getting drunk again, putting myself right back in the same situation, then thinking I can run back to the counselor and make things better, but you just compile things on top of each other that's going to make it worse for you. And that's why I say a lot of times, sometimes contaminated material when it comes to the counseling arena is you dealing with people that you know aren't good for you in the first place.
Wow.
That is contradictory to what you are trying to do, which is heal. And so hurt people. When they see that you're trying to heal, you're moving forward, they want to try to hurt you and bring you back down to where they're at because misery loves company.
Yeah. So you have limiting the exposure to things.
Yeah, it's a lot of things. And I know we talked about this earlier. People cross-contaminate And I'll say for a lot of individuals that may have low self-esteem, you're seeing your counselor for that. Well, how can I raise my esteem? Well, give yourself self-affirmations, use the I statements, things of that nature. But then they will draw themselves back to an area that is bad for them, but is still raising their self-esteem, but it's just in a negative way. So if I'm a female, I have low self-esteem, I can start being very promiscuous with guys, and because they treat me less than what I am, I'm still getting attention, but it's still hurting me. It's contaminated. Oh. Now, I'm going to drop this one. I'm just got to say it. I think cross-contamination is also these people that run around and jump from counselor to counselor. You go to one counselor and tell them all this stuff, go to the next one and tell them the same thing and see if they're both in line. If it's in line, you do what they say, but if not, now I'm going to go somewhere else until I can get somebody that's going to tell me what I want to hear.
Oh, I think it's definitely about hearing what you want to hear and not what you need to
hear.
I run across clients like that who, and I can tell, and I call it out because that's just who I am. I call it out. You're waiting for me to tell you what you want to hear. And because I'm not telling you what you want to hear, you're thinking that this might not be working for you. And I can't make you stay, right? I can't make you choose to stay, but I always leave them with something that makes them think about, if you don't schedule another session with me, think about where you will be in the next 2 to 3 months. What's going to happen to you? That infection that you so want somebody to just cover up real pretty and make it smell good, even though we know infection don't ever smell good. It stinks. It stinks. And it causes and wreaks havoc in your body. But you're wanting someone to dress it up and make it pretty and make it smell good for you. And when you don't get that, you keep jumping, like you said, from therapist to therapist, seeking that. So really, have you really even hit what the wound is? Are you being honest with yourself? Because again, if you can't be honest with yourself, you can't be honest with me.
That's true. I love that. You know, so I know we're speaking about infection. We were speaking about this before, but how many people, especially post-pandemic, because I'm telling you, I think the pandemic was like, it ripped a whole bunch of stuff. But how many people walk around, how many of you walk around in your everyday life that's infected on the inside, but you paint it and make it pretty on the outside?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
How many people?
A lot of people.
You can have all the money that you want in the world. You can have the best vehicles. You can have the prettiest home, 6-figure salary. You have all the nice bells and whistles, and you continue to pursue. And you dress it up. What did they say with a pig? When you dress it up and make it pretty? I'm not trying to call y'all no pig. But I'm just saying, you dress it up and make it pretty. But what does it benefit you when you're not dealing with the infection?
Because you're
forever running after the next thing that you think is going to satisfy me.
You're masking.
They're
masking. And so I've dealt with clients like that. And one thing that I like to do is I will pull down pictures from the internet off Yahoo, if I'm not mistaken, images. And they have these masks that are there. And I don't know if you guys have ever been to Germany overseas, how they have the little masks and maybe you're smiling on one side. So I will give them crayons, map colors, and say, what I want you to do is, out of this stack of pictures that I have here, pick 2 that really speak to you, that you really kind of like. And they'll go through and they'll pick 2. Then I will tell them, on one of these, I want you to color this in the area that you feel that you are in when you're happy with yourself. The other one, I want you to color as to what you show other people. And what always ends up happening, the one that they look for themselves, it's always not pretty. And the other one, they dress it up. So what I would have them do at that time is flip that over. Now on this side, I want you to write, since you're comfortable here, this is what you show people. Why do you show people this? On the other side, where you're saying you're not so pretty, why do you think you're not? And then I will put those together and try to come up with a treatment plan to help that person. Depending on the situation, a lot of time it's CBT. And individuals just need some reinforcements. They need to know how to change their wording. They need positive affirmations. But what I found out in a lot of those that I did, the one that they don't like, they're masking that because they really don't want certain things to come out about them because they feel that that's going to bring them down and make themselves feel worse.
So with you saying that, this is a question that I want to pose to everybody, because they don't want to deal with the things, and we know that sometimes people can become complacent and maybe accept the womb as part of their new normal, right? With the belief that they can't heal. How many times have we seen that? So they are okay with experiencing the pain, the stress, the social isolation, the loss of self-esteem, and the inability to carry out activities of daily life. What do you do for a client who comes to you and like that you call it out, like they've gone through all the processes before, and we get here because now it's time to expose it, and they're not ready. They don't know, like, I don't know if I want to go into that. I just want to cover it up. I'm okay. It's gonna be all right. I'm supposed to just deal with this, because if God didn't want me to go through it, he wouldn't have never took me through it. Right. I'm okay with being socially awkward or isolated, being by myself, or I'm okay with being by myself. But you crave attention. You crave connection. Are you really okay with that? So what do you do with somebody like that?
I'm very straightforward and honest with people, especially when it comes to CBT. I'm just going to put it out there. So Rachel has her phone here. Rachel, can you take your phone and maybe put it like 4 or 5 pages down? There you go. Is the phone still there? So that problem that you're trying to hide and cover up,
come on, sir. Come on,
it's still there.
Oh my God.
You can't see it right here, but it's there, because I guarantee you, if that phone rings, go pick it up. If it buzzes and says, hey, you got a notification, you're going to pick it up. So why do I say that? You have a issue that you are dealing with that is causing a wound in you. You're just going to slide it away and say, oh, it's all right. It's not in plain sight, but it's still there. It's getting worse. And so sometimes when I tell people that, they was like, wow. So then some are challenging. I have to go at it a different way. You have a job. Yeah. Do you do the best you can at that job? Yeah. Why is that? Well, it's for my family and I want to take care of them and do this, that, and other. Do you have hobbies? Yeah. What do you like to do for a hobby? Oh, I play drums. Do you practice a lot? Yeah, because, I play and I want to do the best that I can. So why can't you do that for your own personal self?
My goodness.
You go do everything that you can to keep everything else straight. It's not being contaminated. But do you realize if you stay contaminated, you ain't gonna be able to play them drums? You ain't gonna be able to do this job, because eventually this is gonna become overwhelming for you. And we have to deal with the issue right up front. So at this particular point in time in session, we've hit a impasse. I'm not having an issue. I know what I need to do to try to help you, but you have to make that decision. So which decision do you want? Do you want to keep covering up until it gets so worse that it's not going to be beneficial to your life? It causes issues in your relationship? Or do you at least want to try to do something that may be able to help you? And if it helps you, then guess what? It's enhancing your quality. And I've had a lot of people sit there and look at me and be like, yeah. Because when you look at it, a lot of times we do what we want to do. I was never a straight A student. I did good in school, but sometimes it was just because I just didn't want to. But if I would have really applied myself, then how much further could I potentially have been along? And I tell people, it's the only thing I want you to do is apply yourself. Show me the same thing in the counseling room that you would do on that job. You would do on that field if you're playing sports, that you would do in the pulpit if you was preaching. I'm going to leave that one alone.
So you're saying it's intentional.
Yeah.
Some of it is.
Yourself away from cross-contamination is to be intentional about your whereabouts, who you talk to, the relationships you maintain, how you utilize your resources and money. It's all intentional.
It's about putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation so that you don't be comfortable. Because a lot of things that make us comfortable ain't always good for us. That's why a lot of people will say, I had a hard day at work. I don't want to deal with that. Let me go to the bar after work and have a few drinks. That's why some people say, I'm stressed, and they'll go light up marijuana or blunt or something. And that's why a lot of people say, I don't feel good, so let me go watch some pornography and sleep with some. That's comfortable for you, but you need to be in an uncomfortable setting. Yeah. Why do you think that even in the Bible, Jesus took a lot of people out of their comfortability to make them uncomfortable so that they can accomplish the goal that he had for them in life?
Sure. How many times he do that to
Us.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
feel like that's the story of my life.
Yeah.
Like you can never, if you want to heal, if you want to be better, you cannot stay where you are.
You gotta move.
Have to move.
You
It's
gotta
like he
move.
come in and shake things up and make you uncomfortable so that you'll move into the next era or next level of your life, if you will. So the other thing I wanted to add to that real quick before you say what you're going to say, Shan, but it sounds like to me like you have to invest time in connections that support healing. Like you cannot expect the healing if you're not investing. So being intentional, like you said, you have to be intentional. Invest time in connections that support healing.
And why do you think that is? Because a lot of individuals, that may be the first time they've ever had that, walking into your counseling room, because nobody else has provided that safe place. Nobody has provided a place where they can be heard and understood and get their feelings out, for them to be able to process their emotions. They've just been listening to what the world tells them to do, and now they're in a place that they're uncomfortable with, but that's probably the best place for them. Why do you think Jesus had to go in the wilderness for 40 days? Why, oh, Jonah, I'm telling you, you need to do this. Oh, no. Okay, well, just go out there and talk to that whale for a while. I bet you'll change your mind. Sometimes we put ourselves in situations where if we just made the decision to get the help that we need, we wouldn't have to go through some of the stuff that made us turn around in the first place.
Right.
I had early on, I had a client, and they were cheating on their significant other, and they came to therapy because they needed support and an understanding of how to move from shame and guilt to the place of accepting themselves. But not only that, coming to grips to tell their significant other what they've done. However, when they came, they said that here's the problem. They identified it. Here's what I've done, I guess, to sustain the problem. But here's what I don't want you to tell me that I need to do.
Wow.
Oh Lord.
Here's what what I don't want you to tell me that I need to do in order to heal.
Wow.
Yeah. So early on, I mean, straight up. And I was like, well, what are you here for?
Right.
You know what I mean? What's your purpose? The end state of it is we were able to work through the reason why they were cheating. But the next step was to confront and share with the significant other. And they weren't ready for that. And so they ghosted me.
So that's a prime example of covering up with contaminated material. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's pretty deep.
I can imagine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty deep.
I mean, you come, and it's almost like you said, what's the purpose? You came to therapy, you identify what the problem is, you work through it as to why. But when it comes down to, and you say, well, I don't want you to tell me what I know I need to do.
They said, I don't want you to tell me what I know I need to do, pretty much.
I know I do.
What I know I need to do.
So what were you supposed to do? Just support them and I'm just, and
I didn't know how else to support them other than saying, what are you here for?
Yeah.
They want to help.
And they wanted me to talk about, remember, but not only that, the outer, the external, the superficial.
And not the
And and I was like, what?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So that a clear prime example of covering with contaminated material. You know you need the healing, but you stop someone from helping you with the healing because of what that healing is going to expose about you.
I was going to mention earlier, as we were talking about contaminated material and, being around individuals while we're purposing to heal, and we go back around them. Okay. This is what came to my mind. for those who've moved away from home. Let me just go back to the military for a minute, because this right here will definitely, 9 times out of 10, when we were in basic training, and I know a lot of this table can attest to this, you get to talking when you have your little downtime. It's like, hey, why did you come in the Army? Why did you come in the Army? What'd you come in the Army for? And people will express 9 times out of 10, people were trying to leave a toxic environment. So they went and signed up with Uncle Sam, right? They were trying to get away. So think about this. When you are at this point in counseling, it's kind of like the same correlation. You desire better. So that's why you leave. That's Army, what I'm talking about. Counseling, you desire better, so that's why you come. Okay? Absolutely. So then you start to work on your healing journey. Now, some people identify within themselves, I'm not ready to go back to that toxic environment. I'm not ready to go back home. Most military at this point will go back home only in case of emergencies when they get their Red Cross message. And even with that, we'll say, look, it's got levels to it. Look, no, who passed away? Oh, okay. Well, this is one where we need to go to the funeral because I was at this is one where I'm just going to send some flowers. This is one where I'm just going to send a card. It depends on the severity. So with this, most people, when you get to this stage, can realize and recognize that even your counselor would say, if you bring it to the room, man, I got to go back home. For example, I got to go back into this toxic environment. Okay, well, let's discuss that. What does that look like for you when you go back? And then begin to process and help prepare you, because you're not fully healed yet, but you're going into this contaminated environment. So I want you all to think about that. For those of you who have left home, I've generally asked people, so do you plan on moving back home? Or people you graduated with, Larissa, you plan on moving back home? And that's the face you get. So it's like, no. Or you can't pay me to move back home. You know what I'm saying? Right. So think about it in that context. Use that. I hope that made sense to you. When you're in this part of your healing journey, asking yourself, am I strong enough to be surrounded by the individuals that I was before that got me to this?
And piggying off of that, I want people to be okay with avoiding those toxic situations too, because you may have a situation, like you said, where there's a death in the family and you need to go back, or you get to determine. Now, I'm not going to say you need to go back.
Right.
Because you get to make the decision on whether you go back. So when we're talking about healing and you haven't fully reached your healing place yet, and you know that the people that you tend to be around, being i.e. family members, that causes or brings toxicity to you, you get to determine whether or not, you want to go back and be in that. So first you got to identify the negative influences, like recognize the people who bring you down, who are causing the stress, who is the toxic people, recognizing that, and then limit your contact with them. Yes. So if I do have to go back for the funeral, right? I go back for the funeral. For me, you get 1 to 2 days tops. I might come in the day of, I might come in the day before. If I come in the day before, after the funeral, I'm gone. If there's a repast, I may or may not come to the repast. It's just, and these are things, and this is not necessarily what I do, and if it came down to it, I probably will. But these are things that can be done to limit that contact with toxicity, right? Because we know when everybody get around and start talking, things can come up. So you want to make sure you're in charge and you are protecting that wound that you have open now, that you're working through. You don't want to allow those people to be able to sprinkle things in, because it only takes you back.
So you have to be okay with that, about not worrying about what other people may think about your boundaries.
Absolutely.
Because you are in a sensitive healing space.
Absolutely.
You got to get to the point where you don't care. Like, I don't care what they think. You cannot care. You cannot worry. You cannot be overly concerned more than you valuing what you have going on in your own walk.
Right.
You cannot devalue yourself for someone else.
I mean, even the Bible teaches us about worrying. What is it going to add to you?
That part.
It adds nothing.
Not another day, not another minute, not nothing.
But the funny thing about what Rachel just said, and I love having these conversations about boundaries. This is the issue with boundaries. Rachel sets the boundaries that, Kenya, I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't do this, that, and other. But the minute I say I want a boundary set, Rachel ain't following it.
Right.
And that's what a lot of people do when they contaminate. Hey, look, I'm going through therapy. I would appreciate it if you wouldn't raise your voice or yell around my kids. It does something to them. It does something to me. And then they go off, not respecting you for the individual because it's a request. I'm trying to heal, but yet you keep doing the same thing that is hurting me. And I just think from a boundary perspective, I think it should be a class that is given about boundaries so that people can understand it on both sides. It's just like respect. It goes both ways. You can't tell me not to do something to you, but you'll turn around and do the same exact thing to me. What does that say? And a lot of people can't heal because of that same thing. And I'm going to go ahead and say this. There are a lot of husbands, there are a lot of wives that are going through marriage counseling for themselves independently. And the minute they go through therapy, they come right back into the same environment, and that husband and the other wife just beats them all, and everything they just built up, it just tears them all down. So this isn't just always an individual thing with you going to therapy and worried about people outside. Sometimes you get cross-contamination even on the inside with the people that are closest supposed to you, that's supposed to love you the most.
So what do you do when it's someone close to you? And like a spouse,
Honey,
or a parent?
I talked to you about going to counseling. I'm trying to better myself. And just like I told you, this was nothing having to do with you, the kids, or anything. This is about me. So as I'm going through this, I would appreciate if you would afford me the opportunity to make myself a better whole person, because in the end, it's going to affect everybody here in a positive way. Can I get that?
Communication.
And if that person says no, that's the toxicity.
Yes. And you need to reevaluate that relationship. And I know that's hard because we're talking about spouses, right? Because the last thing you want to think is, but that's toxic. That's toxic. The last thing you want to think about is my spouse keeps crossing my boundary. And I know that in therapy, I've learned that if people keeps crossing my boundary, what I can do is remove myself from the situation. But oh my God, I got to remove myself from this marriage.
It's hard.
It's hard. It is really hard, but that's a part of the process. If this person can't respect you enough to respect your boundary that you have in place to heal yourself, they may not be the one for you. And I think that's where we get into that whole unequally yoked thing. Like, were you really supposed to be with that person to begin with? What was the connection? That takes it even deeper to, did we have a trauma bond? The reason why we ended up together, I think we talked about trauma bonds in season 1. Yeah, so if y'all don't know about trauma bonds, go back and talk and see that, because now you're on this healing journey. You're healing and you no longer have that trauma affecting you in that manner. The infection is gone. You're clearing up. The scar is getting good. You're not covering things with contaminated material, but now you see, I don't connect with this person at all.
You have to expect that some relationships will not remain the same.
It won't.
If you're, depending on who they are. Well, no, it's not depending on. Some relationships will not remain the same, because if they are the one that's bringing the contamination and you're saying, I'm valuing myself this season and I'm going to completely heal, this means I might have to let some of my relationships go.
Yeah. Right. And that's hard when we're talking about marriage, because you vowed.
You vowed.
But then I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I was about to say, think about this too. I want you out, because think about how, especially from a relational standpoint, there are individuals that say, well, you don't understand. I'm supposed to be with my husband. I'm supposed to be with my wife because the man of God said. Because God said. God ain't probably, I'm sorry, I was about to go country. I was about to say, let me go.
God ain't bit most of
God probably bit most said that this is who you supposed to be with. And this is the thing when I think about, it's funny because we just had this conversation. I think we spoke about it a little earlier in the series. Again, there goes that fantasy versus reality. Were you fantasizing? Because what I see in a lot of individuals, specifically women that I talk to, and I'm just talking about in general. No knock to the single ladies, no knock. But there are so many that I have conversation with, just general conversations, where I am getting older and I don't want to be lonely. So I will trauma bond, or I would just go online, and if whatever they little stuff say on the little online dating sites, I'm struggling with that because I don't know what, how they go. Hinge or whatever other stuff people have told us, whatever the little stuff say, oh, this is my person. This is my person. So you're claiming somebody that you haven't really known and you haven't even healed yourself. Mm-hmm. So you're inviting the contamination to come in and slapping it on a bandage. You're dressing up this person to be your husband or, your wife. You're dressing up this person, and then you sit up and wonder, this is coming. Y'all know shit. You sit up and wonder, how did I get in a predicament where I'm going to counseling, I'm trying to heal, but my biological clock, because I heard that too, I have my own house. I'm making 6 figures on my job. I have my own vehicle, stocks, bonds, and all those things. And now all of a sudden I have a man sleeping on my couch, driving my car, dropping me off at work. And I come home and I got to cook and clean for him to prove to him that I'm wife material. Do you see all the contamination? Ooh. Because you were doing good at first because you was new year, new me. You know what I'm saying? I ain't trying to make fun, but that's what everybody say, right? New year, new me. And so you're doing all the things and moving towards health and progression. But then the idea of contamination popped up. My biological clock. I'm lonely. I got to be married by this age. I hear that a lot. Mm-hmm. Oh, am I going to be able to have children? And then you invite all this contamination via the internet in, and you struggling worse than what you was before you sought therapy.
Mm-hmm. So negative thoughts can be a form of contamination.
Yes. Can I get a witness?
Yes. I love the way we've been hitting this. We've been coming at it from relationships, like individual talking to people. And I want to bring out minding our media. Because that can contaminate as well, right? So being selective about what you watch and what you read to avoid triggering content. How many times have you been watching a movie and you just start crying because something that was done in that movie hit you in a place that you thought wasn't a problem for you or you thought you was good, and it just hit that wound and covered you like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm. You're not being soft either.
No,
right.
You're not being soft. You're being cautious.
Yes.
Because when you were saying that, I was thinking about a scripture. 1 Corinthians 10:13 says, let us rid ourselves of everything that gets in the way and of the sin which holds onto us so tightly, and let us run with determination the race that lies before us. So we have to get rid of it. Mm-hmm. It's going back to that it is intentional.
Yes.
Right. So the media have to be, you're not being soft, you're not being extra. You're saying, no, I know that will contaminate my walk and my journey. So no, I can't go. I can't watch that. How about we watch something funny today?
Right.
That's how you avoid cross-contamination.
Yes. So, and that's what it was saying, like being selective. Choose media that makes you feel good. Yes. And it keeps you informed. Now, I know folks want to say the news keeps us informed, but you got to be careful even with the news, because the news can contaminate as well. So you have to be careful even about that. So when we talked about being selective, but then how much of it you receive in. So being protective, when we were talking about saying whether or not you want to go to a family funeral or something like that, or a family function, you determine how much of that you are willing to immerse yourself into. So if I can only take 5 to 10 minutes of the news, that's all I'm taking. It's 5 to 10 minutes of the news.
You get the main points, 1, 2, 3. Okay.
That's it. That's all I need. And I don't need to get it 7 times a day. I just don't. I don't need to get it from 7 different avenues either.
Or people, right?
Exactly.
If you in conversations in the break room, if you realize this could contaminate my day, no, I'm gonna have to eat by myself. Go walk around the parking lot, whatever you need to recognize. I'm not gonna go in knowing that this is gonna disrupt my peace.
Yes. So when it talks about, and I know I'm thinking of social media, but it was like curating your feed to include uplifting and inspiring content. But I'm thinking like curating the people who are around you too, the relationships that you're involved in around you, to make sure that it includes that uplifting. Now, we're not saying to be clueless, like Shan was saying. You can't be the fantasy versus the reality. There has to be a balance, but I don't have to live in a fantasy world, but I also don't have to live in a place where I constantly allow things to come in and contaminate me because you think I should.
You are responsible for you.
Absolutely.
Nobody else is going to treat you and guard you like you will. Right. So make sure you teach the next generation this too, because last episode we're talking about the next generation.
Yeah.
We have to teach this generation to the following generation that when they're in school, when they're in college, listen, you get to choose who you hang out with. You get to choose what club that you get involved in. You don't have to do certain things if it doesn't bring you peace and it doesn't contaminate your walk.
Exactly.
I was sitting up thinking about and listening to you all speak about boundaries and peace. And as we're talking about cleaning out the infection and being on your healing journey, I like to always give examples and make it plain. And I don't know if we ever mentioned this on a show, but in the King household, and I want you all to think about this. Think about your peace. So if your home is your place of peace, be mindful of who you allow to cross your threshold coming in your home to contaminate your peace, right? We have a standing, we got a couple rules, but, stick to the rules. Well, yeah, take your shoes off because you ain't going to bring your physical dirt in our house and you ain't going to bring your spiritual dirt in our house, okay? And that means of the devil, all right? So that's one. Number two, we don't do drama. We do not do drama. Our home, people come to our home and be like, man, I could go to sleep. Oh man, it's so relaxing in here. They feel it in the atmosphere. When you start to heal, your peace become contagious. Come on, that'll breach. Woo! I need to write that down. That don't hashtag that belongs to us. When you start, you heard it here first. Talk.Therapy.Heal. When you start to heal, your peace becomes contagious. Okay. So with that, setting those boundaries, you can't come into my house acting crazy. And this is the thing. When you walk in peace, you don't have to go there with them. Because one of the things now, being a believer, I'm going to speak about this, but being a believer, praying over this home. Pray. We praying. You will see when somebody is not at peace, they don't feel comfortable. Baby, they fidgeting, they shaking, you trying to do everything, and you smiling because I can see it. You okay? You all right? Oh, yeah. Wow, ooh, is it hot in here? It's getting kind of hot. It's getting kind of hot in here, but it's like, you sure? Okay. And they will find every excuse to get up out your peace. That's what healing look like. True healing is a place of peace.
And you can even do that through the phone lines, y'all.
That part.
Pray over these things that y'all put up to your ear and talk on a daily, regular basis. You can pray over that and create that same level of peace to where people can't even dial your number.
Ooh.
They can't even dial your number because they already know what's going to happen. That peace going to come and permeate through that phone line, and they going to be like, I can't deal with this. I need drama, I need crazy, I need chaos.
Yes.
And when you don't bring it, when you don't match it, you don't exude it out of your body, you'll find out who is supposed to be around you and who's not. And that's the craziest thing, because I think a lot of times when that starts to happen to people, they be like, well, what's wrong with me? Nobody is coming around, or the people that used to bring the drama and the chaos is no longer coming around, and you start to question what's wrong with me. And you healing. That's what's wrong.
Right.
You're healing, and they can't take that healing. And so they can't be around that peace that you exude. It's not sitting well with them. Their spirit needs the chaos. Their spirit needs the drama. And when it doesn't get that, it doesn't know what to do. It has to flee.
Right.
It has to.
Oh, girl, let me give you the tea. I don't want it. I don't want it.
No,
You
you
can
got
drink it. I wrote down, healing is contagious.
Yeah, it is. Peace. You see your peace become contagious.
That's what people are, in my opinion, are afraid of. When you start to get truly healed and people see a difference in you, sometimes your healing speaks to somebody else that needs that healing. And then that person wants to go get healed. Other people are seeing that, they're becoming uncomfortable because they're used to the chaos. See, I'm going to have to go ahead and say this. I worked in a place at one time and it was a lot of chaos. And I ain't gonna lie, at one point it started to get to me. Then I moved to another spot. and everything stopped. And I felt bad. I was like, I should still be where I used to be at, but I don't want to be a part of that chaos. I used to see some of the same people that used to talk down to me, say I wasn't educated enough. I don't know how you got this job, this, that, and other. Well, now the same people that tell me I was the best thing since sliced bread. Mm-hmm. How do you get sweet and sour from, I ain't gonna say that, from the same vine. But sometimes what we have to understand is that cross-contamination doesn't just come from your spouse. It just doesn't come from your kids. It doesn't just come from the people that you hang around that may have been a bad example for you. Sometimes it's right there in the workplace. Mm-hmm. And the way that you have to handle that is be you, go ahead and heal. And when they come with all that foolishness, you set the boundaries in place. Yeah. Oh, okay, I'm going to stop you right there. Mm-hmm. Before we go into this meeting, I'm just going to, don't call me out because I don't have time for that. I move past that. We're going to go in, have a productive meeting. We're going to move forward. But just be warned, if you call me out, be ready for what's going to come. Now, the old me would just go in on it. But I learned something very seriously that was serious to me as I was going through a psychoeducation class with one of my clients, walking them through it. This particular lady gives a class on confrontation and control. And she says the key to confrontation is don't take the bait. Mm-hmm. People will bait you into acting a certain way. People will bait you into getting off the course that you're supposed to be on. You just don't have to take the bait. A fish will never get caught if you don't take the bait.
And that's contamination.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just want to say this.
Wow.
The fish won't get caught if it don't take the bait. I can visualize that.
Wow, I know. I can see that. You got the bait dangling
on the hook.
But I know that ain't real.
I ain't going for it.
Because you're not going to catch me today.
Yeah.
Right.
So
it's a rubber worm. Sorry.
When I was thinking about, when you cook chicken or you cook any kind of meat.
Come on now. Totally cynical. So you cooking pork, you cooking chicken.
Yes.
All I was going to say was, so in order for cross-contamination not to occur, you got to clean as you go.
Oh,
give me 5 friends.
Hey, that's another hashtag. Oh, hashtag clean as you go. Come on.
You gotta wash them hands.
Yeah.
You can't use the same fork.
Yeah.
To cook. You cannot.
Wait a minute.
You gotta wash your area. You gotta use bleach. Whatever you need to make sure that there is no cross contamination while you cooking.
Yeah.
We gotta have an off conversation because when she said chicken right out the bat, y'all know where I went. All them TikToks, videos of people taking chicken right out
and just dumping it in the pan. They just cross-contaminate. They wonder why everybody feels to see. Okay, I know what you're talking about.
The dogs and the cats and all the things.
Yes, cross-contamination. Talking about, no, this right here is my pet. This is but your pet's tail is in the casserole dish. I mean, I'm sorry, y'all.
Yeah,
cross-contamination.
So we had to have a little bit there.
So with that treatment. And you know what? I think too, just like God, go before me. I'm about to go into this meeting. Why?
Oh, wow. Clean.
Make every crooked place straight. You know what I mean? Like that's how you clean as you go. Lord, I'm about to go encounter the father of my child. I need you to help make sure that whatever happens does not come back on me. Guard my ears.
Come on.
You know, like you. Yes, this is how you clean as you go. You do it with prayer.
And you got to be careful with that because you'll go into a meeting and it may be 4 people and where everybody at? They got
you cleaned everybody out. Okay.
There you go.
Yes. Don't cover the room with contaminated material.
And that's the other thing too that making me think about work situations where when people are having stressors at work and it's a particular person, and I'll just say pray about it because while you're praying for God to remove you, you might be in the right place. They're the one who's contaminating, and you go in there and you like, well, where'd Bob go? Bob got fired yesterday. What? You prayed. You prayed for God to remove the contamination, and He removed it.
Yeah. Right.
You can't, thank you, Lord. You cannot dictate what gets removed when you are in the cleaning process. Washing their hands, you cannot say
Don't take off that germ.
I knew that one right there.
You are washing when
One
you
on the
put
pinky
the
finger.
soap in your hand and begin to rub your hands together. You are agreeing to wash everything off of your hands and get rid of it and let it wash down. You cannot dictate what stays.
Get rid of it.
So when you pray and ask God to do a thing for you, you cannot dictate how he do it and at what rate he do it. You just got to allow it to happen the way that it's supposed to. So if things are not supposed to be contaminated and you want it to be clean, be okay with what's going to be cleaned in the process.
And sometimes you have to treat people like physicians, like surgeons, because when I grew up, I would go to my doctor's office in my small town. I never forget this guy's name was Dr. Wise. Every single time he come through that door, he's getting some out. Or back then they washed their hands. Take a couple of paper towels. He would dry his hands, and then you turn the faucet off, and then you discard the paper. And I used to be like, "Oh, this guy's clean," because what are they coming up next? And they
all in your private.
You don't want all that going with you. So that's why I say sometimes you got to treat people like a physician or a surgeon, because you know that surgeon. All right, I'm going to scrub in, and they ain't going just like that. No, they eye down, all because they want to make sure they don't give something to you that's going to infect you while you're on that surgical table or thereafter. We have to treat people like that, because a lot of them run around, they show you the contamination they got, and you still like hanging around with them.
You all touching, all laying, all on the plate.
And I'm telling you, I'm one of those individuals that's like that. I talk to everybody. I don't care if I will still speak. Now, certain things I just won't allow. There's some people I wouldn't invite to my house. Shan will tell you, there's a few people, and I've told her exactly who they were. I can't let that person pray for me. I don't watch them too long. And so I can't let you be in your season and what you're doing that's contaminating stuff. And then I'm going to willingly walk up in there and let you contaminate me.
I'm vulnerable and open and exposed.
So you have to have non-negotiables. So write them down. Write down your pause. Write down your non-negotiable cross-contaminated prevention plan.
There we go. That's a good one. That's a good one.
With the plan.
Cross-contamination prevention plan.
Oh, I like that. Cross-contamination prevention plan.
Right.
It's the CCPP.
And created it.
Be dropping W.
Man.
I like that. I like that.
When you write it down in 6N, you know. Oh, write the vision, make it plain.
I was about to say that.
Yes, it's in you now. Anybody can run with it. That next generation, they gonna know we don't do that. This is my standard. This is my non-negotiable. I won't cross-contaminate.
Oh,
it's just like we have to treat. I think as counselors, sometimes we have to treat our clients like babies. They're coming to us, and you know, if a person drops a baby off to you, you're babysitting or whatever. Oh, when do you feed them? When do you do this? When do you do that? Sometimes when they're with you, some of that changes. You will see that the person that dropped that baby off may not be doing the right thing. So what you have to do? You can tell this person is not being treated right and heard at home. As a counselor, you're going to have to hear them. Sometimes they're going to give you stuff or show you stuff where they have been contaminated. You may have to be the one to show them how to clean themselves. And then at the same time, sometimes you have to be able to give that baby back and then tell that other individual, hey, are you aware that if you leave a diaper on a baby, X amount, it's going to do this? Because sometimes people just don't know. I'm a firm believer. Certain things just aren't meant to be mixed. They're not. And one of those, in my opinion, is you trying to play counselors against each other. It's just not going to come out good for you. Don't run over here and they be like, oh, I saw Mr. King and he told me this, that, and the other. And I've had people tell me that, and I'm like, well, this is what we're going to do. Why were you seeing that counselor? Well, I was seeing, but that was the same thing you came for me for. So unless there's another issue, what I would suggest is maybe you keep seeing that counselor, so that way you're able to get the healing that you need there, because I don't want to interrupt or interject in a way that's going to hinder the plan that they already have laid out. Because I guarantee you, we don't have the same treatment. Guarantee. And I've had some people be upset.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Now we have to end it with that. It's unethical for you to see two therapists at the same time. You cannot see me and Rachel at the same time because we're not going to hit the same things in the same way, and it could be confusing for you. So people, if you have two therapists, please go down to one. It's unethical, and then it messes up the treatment for you in the long run. And if a therapist, you're seeing a client knowing that they have another therapist, you are operating in a very unethical manner and you can be reported. So just keep that in mind. You cannot have two therapists at the same time.
Yeah.
Know that. This has been good, y'all.
Yes.
This has really been good. I hope that the people understand what we were talking about with not covering the wounds with contaminated materials. And I feel like we really broke that down to help them understand what contamination is, and what materials you could possibly be covering it with. And I feel like we also gave some very good tips and tools on how they can stop the cross-contamination as well. So we thank you all so much for joining us here tonight on Talk Therapy Heal. Again, we hope that something that was said to you all was able to penetrate you in a way that evokes change within you and in your life. We ask that you all do us a little favor, that you hit that like button, you subscribe, and you hit that notification bell. So that you'll know when we're on next time. So again, thank you so much. Be blessed and thanks.
Bye.
Bye.